Good morning, it's Friday, the 17th of July. You're watching Euronews, and this is Europe Today. Welcome to the program, I'm Stefan Grobe. Coming up, the United States and Iran are locked in an escalating cycle of attacks this morning after the sixth consecutive day of US strikes and Iranian retaliation against Gulf nations and Jordan. Both sides have declared that the Memorandum of Understanding they signed in June to extend the ceasefire is no longer in force. Meanwhile, Pakistan, the principal mediator between Washington and Tehran, urged both sides to end the latest wave of violent attacks and hold talks. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas is on a two-day trip to the Horn of Africa, a rare visit by a top European official to countries critical for regional security. In Addis Ababa, the capital of Ethiopia, the High Representative met with the country's Prime Minister. In Djibouti, Kallas visited ongoing EU naval operations Aspides and Atalanta and signed a bilateral status of forces agreement. We'll have a report from our special correspondent. The Court of Justice of the EU in Luxembourg has given broad backing to Spain's amnesty law, saying it breaches neither EU nor anti-terror rules. A decision that could have an impact on the case of Carles Puigdemont, who is still waiting for a ruling by the Spanish Supreme Court. The former Catalan secessionist leader is still living in self-imposed exile in Belgium to avoid arrest on pending embezzlement charges related to the illegal 2017 Catalan independence referendum. And we're just 2 days away from the World Cup final between Spain and Argentina, a historic first. We'll test the vibes in Madrid, and I'll have a football chat with EU Sport Commissioner Glenn Micallef here in the studio. But first, the Middle East. The prospect of peace in the Persian Gulf has taken serious hits this week. In public statements, Washington and Tehran have suggested that they're in no rush to compromise. US President Donald Trump has repeatedly claimed in recent days that Iran is desperate to cut a peace deal with Washington, but he does not trust Tehran to stick to an agreement. Iranian officials, on the other hand, have maintained a defiant tone. The country's lead negotiator said that Iran was in an existential war with America and had no reason to continue adhering to the peace agreement. To get to the bottom of this, let's head over to Doha to our correspondent Adel Halim. Good morning, Adel. Adel, we've seen another dramatic night across the Gulf. Where does this leave the chances of diplomacy?
Good morning, Stefan. It's been another sleepless night here in Doha. People across Qatar were woken twice by emergency alerts starting at 3:30 this morning. We heard loud explosions and air defense systems intercepted 2 waves of Iranian missiles. Authorities say a child was injured by falling debris. Bahrain also activated its air raid sirens again. Jordan says it intercepted 3 missiles. And Iran is also now claiming it targeted U.S. assets in Syria. So diplomacy hasn't disappeared. Publicly, both Washington and Tehran still say a deal is possible, but events overnight show the fighting is moving much faster than the diplomacy. The rhetoric is hardening as well. Iran is warning that if U.S. expands its attacks to civilian infrastructure, it will return the favor in kind and target civilian infrastructure across the region. So the immediate concern is no longer just what's happening in Iran. It's whether this conflict continues to spill across the Gulf. Stefan?
Well, Qatar has been one of the key mediators throughout this conflict. Does this change its role?
Well, it certainly makes mediation much more complicated. As you mentioned, Qatar has been one of the main channels of communication between Washington and Tehran, as well as Oman during this conflict. But today, it's also a country that's come under attack. Despite that, officials here are making it clear they still want diplomacy to prevail. And the security threat has been declared over, but the message from Doha is that the dialogue remains the only way to stop this conflict from spreading. The challenge now is that Gulf states are no longer just trying to mediate. They're also trying to protect their populations and critical infrastructure while trying to prevent a much wider regional war.
All right, Adel Halim in Doha, thank you for this assessment. From the Persian Gulf now, 2,300 kilometers south to the Horn of Africa. This is the region that Kaja Kallas just visited. The EU's foreign policy chief signed the EU-Djibouti Status of Forces Agreement for Operation Aspidis, the European Union's naval security mission in the Red Sea, Gulf of Aden and nearby waters, launched in 2024 to protect commercial shipping from attacks by Yemen's Houthi movement. Our correspondent Toby Gregory was with Kaja Kallas and sent this report.
The narrow stretch of water behind me is one of the world's most important trade routes, and Iran and its allies are now threatening to shut it down. The Houthis in Yemen, backed by Tehran, are reported to be preparing to close the Bab al-Mandeb Strait, which is just behind me here. It's a move that would send shockwaves through the global economy. It's widely seen as Iran flexing its power across the region, a second front alongside its pressure on the Strait of Hormuz.
European mission down beneath us is simple. It's this to change that to protect the ships that come through to keep this corridor open. Seeing this from the air, you understand the scale of what's at stake. What looks like a thin strip of water is actually one of the most important things to the European economy right now.
That is why the EU's foreign policy chief, Kaja Kallas, is here in Djibouti. Today, she signed a new security agreement with the Djiboutian government to ramp up Europe's presence and visited both the EU's naval missions patrolling these waters, warning that recent Houthi missile attacks on Saudi Arabia are a sign that instability on land becomes insecurity at sea.
It's about more than supporting European operations. It's about keeping one of the world's economic lifelines open together.
Aspidis defends shipping in the Red Sea, and in just over 2 years, it's said it's protected more than 670 merchant ships and saved 128 seafarers. Atalanta, running since 2008, guards against piracy off of Somalia. If this strait were to be choked off too, with Iran already disrupting Hormuz, the cost would reach European homes and businesses. For now, Europe is moving to keep this open.
Toby Gregory there reporting from the Horn of Africa. The European Commission is today naming and shaming and praising governments across Europe in its annual Rule of Law report, a snapshot of the state of democracy, courts and the media freedom across the bloc. The report also issues recommendations accordingly. Thankfully, our EU correspondent Angela Skujins is with me now to tell us all about it. Good morning, Angela. So, fill us in. What can we expect?
Good morning, Stefan. So this is essentially the good, the bad and the ugly when it comes to the 27 EU member states separately, the bloc more broadly, and a smattering of EU accession countries when it comes to rule of law. Now, when I say rule of law, I'm talking about the democratic systems that are put in place to prop up a functioning society. For example, a politician is accused of corruption. We should trust that the policing is fair, the justice system is fair, and that the journalists reporting on this can do their jobs free from pressure. Now, the European Commissioner for Justice, Michael McGrath, will hand down these reports sometime today. We're not exactly sure about the details in the 2026 iteration. However, he did provide Euronews an exclusive statement, which we can put up on the screen here, in which he stated, "This report reflects the important progress and initiatives of the past year, while also highlighting the work that lies ahead. Its purpose is not simply to identify where problems exist, but to help build a stronger culture of respect for the rule of law across Europe." But when we're talking about who's going to fail, we can certainly imagine countries perhaps such as Hungary. This was highlighted last year in the Rule of Law report from 2025, which highlighted threats to media pluralism, no progress on corruption prosecutions, and a lack of transparency in the lower courts. However, I did speak to a Green MEP, member of the European Parliament, Daniel Freund, a vocal proponent for transparency across the bloc. He highlighted that Slovakia could potentially be a rule of law laggard too.
So far, the worst performing was Hungary, but the Hungarian voters have solved some of this, and we're really looking forward to more positive reforms there now. I would say my biggest worry case at the moment is Slovakia, where we had the dismantling of the special prosecutor for corruption. The National Crime Agency was dismantled, legal changes that allow already convicted corrupt people to walk free or their investigations being stopped. All these are not good signs, but a number of member states where the developments are not positive.
So, Stefan, as you just heard, Hungary and Slovakia are certainly countries to keep an eye on, but a variety of others to keep a lookout to.
All right, Angela Skujins there as ever. Thank you so much for your reporting. And now the World Cup, 2 days before the final. For one nation, it's a chance to reclaim football's greatest prize after 16 years. For the other, it's an opportunity to prove that a golden generation can become a dynasty. On one side stands Spain, chasing a second World Cup to confirm its return to the summit of world football. On the other is Argentina, defending champion, inspired once again by the blue and white passion that has defined generations. 90 minutes, 2 proud football cultures, 1 trophy. History awaits. What are the vibes in Spain before the encounter? I've asked Euronews editor-in-chief Maria Tadeo, who happened to be in Madrid, about the emotional experience 2 days before the summit. Here's what she said.
Well, good morning, Stefan. Hello from Madrid. And as you can imagine, in this city and the whole of Spain, for that matter, it's all about the World Cup and that final on Sunday. You see the stage is already set out for that game against Argentina, a final for the ages. These teams, Argentina nor Spain, were considered a favorite at the start of the competition. Remember, the pundits, and they got it wrong, very wrong, they all argued the French, the unbeatable French, with an incredible, powerful attack, would make it all the way to the final, and that was the end of the story. Instead, the Spanish steamrolled the French, and the Argentinians, we saw that in their game against England right before this final. They will push and fight it till the last second, and that is what makes this final so special, a final for the ages. There's a lot of symbols around it too. We're getting an all Spanish speaking final, the first time in almost 100 years now, and this is important and it's relevant because this competition is hosted by Canada, the United States, and Mexico. And at the start of the World Cup, there was a concern that perhaps Spain and Spanish could be swept aside to appeal, or in order to appeal to the North American market, the U.S., and certainly the President of the United States, Donald Trump. Instead, we're going to get a final that certainly speaks Spanish. It's also the first time that Argentina and Spain play at a level, at a game of this magnitude in a final World Cup in decades. The last time it was the 60s. And of course, there is also a thread that connects both teams, and that is Barcelona. Messi, the star of Argentina, he learned everything at this club. He became a global international star with Barcelona, and now he will face off with Lamine Yamal, the new idol of Barcelona. So there's a lot of elements that make this a final to watch. We certainly will be watching, and look, who am I kidding? I'm biased, and I certainly hope that Spain will take this cup home.
Maria Tadeo there reporting from Madrid. And now I like to do a pre-game analysis with Brussels' own Mr. Football, the EU Commissioner for Intergenerational Fairness, Youth, Culture and Sport, Glenn Mikhalov. Welcome to the program. Good morning, see you on the set this morning. So I remember a conversation you and I were having about half a year ago in which you said that Spain would win the World Cup. Are you still standing by your prognosis?
I said it half a year ago. I said it before the World Cup started, and I'll stick to my guns on this one. I think the Spanish team has been a strong team. You know, people were writing them off after they drew in the first match against Cape Verde. But this is what happened in 2010 when they won it. They lost the opening fixture at the time to Switzerland. They struggled in the first match this time around with Cape Verde. But I still think they're the strongest team in this tournament.
What about Argentina? Would you have preferred England as a finalist to have two European teams?
I was rooting for England in this match. First of all, I've been watching the English Premier League as far as I can remember. I think the Englishmen had a pretty good run in this tournament. They were a strong and formidable team. I mean, amazing players. How good is Jude Bellingham and Harry Kane?
Amazing, yeah.
Elliot Anderson, for me, has broke out on the global stage. in this tournament.
Spence comes to mind. Yeah.
Jet Spence also had a couple of good games. Now, I was kind of expecting. I wanted the English to make it.
Let's take a look back at this tournament already. Did football unite the world as FIFA always advertises?
Look, away from all the controversy that surrounded this World Cup, I think it was a pure joy to watch the tournament. So there was a great atmosphere. The football was simply amazing, and I have this image which is still stuck in my mind, and I can't help but reflect on it whenever I get asked this question of what happened during the Argentina-Egypt match. Mm-hmm. The images from Gaza and children coming together, despite how hard the situation is, to watch the game. Mm-hmm. And this is the beautiful thing about football. For 90 minutes, you can forget about everything that's going on around you and just focus on
You mentioned Egypt. I mean, we've seen strong performances from teams from Africa, from Asia. Has football become more competitive globally?
Well, we've seen teams, South American teams and African teams, perform really well. The Ivory Coast team has been really good. Morocco has been really good. So I think football has grown in these continents, and now we're seeing much more quality players coming up from these systems. Mm. But the fact remains that the best talent, the best football is still being played in Europe, and that's something which
of course
makes me very proud.
I
mean, if you look at the last 8 teams, 6 of them were European teams, and that tells you something.
Right, and even it's not only EU; it's also Switzerland and
Europe.
And
I'm saying Europe.
Was it a smart idea to give the tournament to 3 host countries?
I think people were concerned about this. At the end, I feel it worked out really well. So the changes made to the tournament, the fact that it's grown to 48 teams, people were skeptical about that. I think the format worked. Yeah. The changes to the rules, people were also skeptical about them. With the exception of the hydration breaks, which were quite controversial.
Commercial breaks, yeah.
You can call them whatever you like. But the other changes to the rules made the game simply more exciting. So faster throw-ins, people wasting time are not allowed. It made the game more interesting to watch.
So we're going to have 3 hosts again in 4 years, Spain, Portugal, Morocco. And they're also considering having 60 countries participate. Do you support that?
Well,
instead of 48 right now?
Look, with 48, I think it worked quite well. Taking it to 60, well, I'm not sure. I wouldn't write it off immediately. So I think an enlarged tournament made it more exciting, more fans, more opportunities to watch football. In a tournament like this, I can't get enough of this. So it's almost bittersweet that it's coming to an end. And I think people were having concerns, myself included. I was having concerns about safety, security, about the atmosphere, about the fans being half empty, about the stadiums being half empty. Ultimately, it turned out great. So congratulations to the hosts, to the organizers, because finally it was a great tournament.
Just a very quick one. What are the biggest challenges for global football going forward? Is it political interference? Is it money? Or is it nothing at all?
Had you asked me this before the tournament, I would have said sustainability, creating a sustainable system where it becomes a lot easier without excessive commercialization for football to continue to flourish. I think what happened with the interference during this World Cup was...
We don't want to talk about this anymore. Thank you so much, Commissioner, for being on the show today. That was great. And that's it for today. Marit Gwynne-Jones will be in this chair next week. I'm Stefan Grobe. Thank you for watching. Take care and enjoy the game on Sunday. See you soon.
See you.